Hello everybody, from wherever you are listening around the world, welcome. If you're new here, stick with it. You might pick up on some of my pearls of wisdom that I may be dropping today or in previous episodes. You might get nothing, but I'm sure if you dig long enough, there will be a nugget there for you. Now, for them of you who've been listening, for the last 4 years I've been doing this podcast, and for those who've listened will have known, fucking Jesus Christ. Good morning, everybody, from wherever you are listening in the world. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening. If it's your first time here, stick with us. I'm sure there's a nugget that I might drop that you could take use from. I'm sure of it. Deep down in my bones, I am sure of it. Now, today, what I want to talk to you about is dealing with struggle. Dealing with struggle and the way I've dealt with it in the past and the way that I deal with it today. Now, them of you who don't know, for the last 4 years, I wouldn't say I've been struggling because I'm able to deal with it a lot better now. But it's been, shall we say, not 100%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you all the way back to day one. Day one when my just gone 16-year-old mother pumped me out into this world. The 17-year-old dad had buggered off, and off he'd gone away. So she's there with me, having to bring up a screaming, shitty baby who is, well, days old, weeks old. And I think she lasted about a month and a half before she thought, right, I've got to get this kid out at the door. And off I was sent to Bradford to be raised by a couple in Bradford. So, for them of you who don't know the UK, if you're going from Knaresborough, now Knaresborough, very posh. I was born in Harrogate, which is even posher. So you're going from there to probably one of the most run-down cities in England at that time. Yeah, one of the most run-down cities in England, to be brought up by a family who've got no blood connection to you. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I'll say that from the start. It's not a bad thing. But the people in that family, my mum's sisters, they didn't want me about, and it was pretty clear from as far back as I can remember that they didn't want me around, them two sisters of my mother's. So you kind of knew that you could be out of the door at any moment. And I've mentioned in the past, my mother, because she was waking up with hangover, she would always be in a bad mood first thing in the morning. So she fell on that golden ticket one morning where she just she bent down to me and she said, I'm going to put you into care. And I think what she saw in my face reflected what I saw in her face, because she must have seen sheer fucking terror in my face at the thought of this 5-year-old were about to get fucking binned off by a second set of parents. So she then used that probably right up until I got to the point where, oh no, she's not going to do it. She's cried wolf too many times now, which would have been about 5 or 6 years later. But by then, damage is already done. Damage is already done. So what you had in front of you as a kid was somebody that let a lot of shit slide. Let a lot of shit slide with people who were being really unreasonable with you. Would allow... I didn't get bullied at school. I allowed myself to get bullied at school, because if I got into trouble by having a go at the bully or beating up the bully, that news would get back home from the school to my mother, and then again you're getting threatened with being put into care. So for between the ages of 4 and 10, 11, maybe 12, you always had that thing in the back of your mind that Bernardo's were going to be at the door in the morning, and you were going to get dragged off to some children's home where you didn't know anybody. Frightening it was. Fucking frightening. So that were my struggle. Now you might be thinking, people that might be downloading this thinking, that's no fucking struggle whatsoever. Well, it isn't, but your worst struggle is your worst struggle. I mean, I'm not a fucking kid in Gaza. You know, I'm not a Ukrainian kid who's just seen his parents blown up in front of him and turn into mincemeat. I'm not that. But that were mine. And it is what it is. It's done now. It's fucking done. But I had to get out of there as soon as possible. And the only way to get out of there at 16 with the qualifications I had, which were fucking zero, because when you're getting told you're useless and you fucking terrified that care home staff are going to be coming for you and whipping you off, you can't concentrate on fuck all apart from this balancing act of trying to keep your mum happy and trying to fucking fight off the bullies at school without fighting them, and worrying about getting dragged off to a fucking orphanage. So that were my childhood. That were the struggle. And it fucking carried on, and it carried on, and it carried on. So you join the military to try and be part of something because you really want part of your own family. You didn't feel part of your own family. So you join the military. You realise after fucking a year and a half of that, you're not... What a fucking mistake that was. So you're not part of that. So you get out, and then you get back to England, and you go back to the north of England, and then you find a group. You find a group that would go out to gigs and go out to all parts of the north of England, having a fantastic time. But then you're boozing and you're taking pills. But it's a fantastic time. But then in the back of your mind, I'm like, well, I'm not really a part of this either. And you get a girlfriend who then takes advantage of that thing, because you're not having a go at somebody that's treating you badly. So you just let that slide, and you let it slide. And it has to come to an end. I mean, everything I was doing to excess, booze, food, everything to excess. I can't do one thing normally. I can't do one thing normally. So I would put on a shitload of weight. I got one tattoo, I had to have fucking 7 in quick succession. You switch from beer to wine. All right, it's fruit juice. So you're drinking shitloads of wine. I started smoking. I couldn't just have one cigarette. I'd have to have 2 packs a day. And then when you eventually do get off all this shit, you realise, right, there's something fucking wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. And now how I deal with it now, I don't see that as a struggle. I see that as, I'm glad, you're glad that you've had it. You're glad that you've had it. Now, the most fucking interesting people I've met now. I've met in the past, I know now, and I will probably meet in the future, are those people that have had the fucking struggle. Now, lucky for me, I only had one parent. Now, when you meet somebody who's had the struggle, who seems to have... One of these people that are winning in life, and I'm not saying I'm fucking winning in life at all. Not at all am I saying I'm winning in life. But what I will say is when you meet somebody who is at a level of where you are, or above where you are, or even below where you are, if you find out where they've come from to where they are now, that is what I want to learn about. More than anything else in the fucking world is where that person has come from to get where he is. Now, this weekend, I was watching the Man United Coventry game. And Man United have been part of it has been taken over by Jim Radcliffe. Now, Jim Radcliffe is just a northern fella. I think he's from Levenshulme in Manchester. A Manchester United fan as a kid. He went off, I don't know his entire journey, but he went off, started his own business, and he now owns a majority stake of Manchester United. Now, on Sunday, he ran the London Marathon. He finished the London Marathon in, I think, about 4 hours 30. 4 hours 30. 71-year-old. 4 hours 30. And then he went to Wembley and watched Manchester United beat Coventry on penalties. An absolute fantastic game for a semi-final of an FA Cup. Now, his journey from sitting in Royal Box, watching semi-final FA Cup, to where he started from fuck all as a northerner, that journey, I don't care where he is now. I just want to know what that journey is. I mean, you see the Elon Musks of the world. Obviously, his father were in charge of a diamond mine, but bullied to shit at school just because they were reading all the time. You do eventually, it comes around. All these fucking popular kids at school who were a prick to you, who were complete arseholes to you, the most popular kids at school 35 years ago, are still the most popular kids at school. When I go back now and see these people who were, I wouldn't say worshipped, but who were so popular at school, there's not one of them I would switch places with now, because they didn't have that struggle. You don't want to be peaking. You don't want to be peaking at school. You see it for them of you who have seen. What podcast were I listening to this week? Diary of a CEO. And it were mentioned that there's that character in Napoleon Dynamite, Uncle Rico. A great film. But Uncle Rico is that, he was that football star at high school. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. If my coach had put me in, I could have been a contender. But he didn't put me in. He's now living in a trailer selling kitchenware. So those people, when you go back and you meet those people, they're not living more than 2 miles away from where they grew up. They're still talking about stuff they did at school. I went back last year and somebody were talking to me about a person I sat 2 seats away from at school, and I don't remember their name. He were explaining to me what he looked like. He told me his name. I cannot remember that person for the life in me. I suppose if I get shown a photograph, I'd know who he was, but I had no idea who that person was. And I thought it were because of my memory. And it's not because of your memory. It's because you've done stuff. You've done shit that has pushed those memories out. You've only got so much fucking bandwidth. You've only got so much of this bandwidth in you that when you do new stuff, the information that you don't need anymore is fucking binned off. So you don't need it. Now, to them kids that are at school now who are listening to this, and I know there's a few of you, because I get the stats, them of you who, like me, 35 years previous, were going through all this bullshit at school, don't worry. Because those kids that you're looking around at now, who are popular now, they're not going to be popular when you're 35 years down the road. No way. I've not met one yet. I've not met one yet who is. Now, the struggle that I went through, and I hate calling it my struggle because it's just normal. People who tell you who had a difficult childhood will tell you when you're going through it, it's just how it is. And it's not until you get further down the road and you meet someone who had a decent upbringing and you tell them about yours, they go, oh no, that one right. And you kind of say, well, what are you talking about? They say, well, that shouldn't have happened and this shouldn't have happened and also that shouldn't have happened. But it's a bit of a double-edged sword because these people that you're talking to who have had that perfect upbringing, they don't seem to be as happy as them that had a struggle. Them that don't have the struggle early on, I think, find it a lot tougher later on. If you had a good first 9, the back 9's going to be shit. If you have a difficult front 9, the back 9, if you sort this shit out in the middle, if you sort this shit out when you're in clubhouse, your back 9 is going to be gravy. It really is. Now, it took me 36 years, 37 years to sort this shit out. I had 2 or 3 years in wilderness where I had to leave the continent of Asia to sort my shit out and come back and do something difficult. I never did anything difficult. I put myself in difficult situations when I were in the military, but I never did anything difficult. I put myself in a difficult situation, but I took the easy option while I was there. Now, what I did where I came to Asia, and I were here. And then I put myself in a difficult situation. I got shut of the fucking millstone that were around my neck in the form of a girlfriend. And then I couldn't detach myself from it, so I moved to Spain. I started a sea kayaking business up, and that was the most difficult thing. I wasn't that comfortable in water. I'd never really kayaked before. I'd not done any of that stuff before, but I thought, I'm going to go to Spain. I'm going to do something I've never done before, and I'm going to try and make money out of it. So I went there, and I did it. And for a couple of summers, it were all right. My wife came over with a kid. We had another kid in Spain. We had 2 kids in Spain. We had 2 kids in Spain in a country where we weren't right. Neither of us were good with language. But we ended up having a kid there. So we both, I didn't bond, we were already bonded, but we both did something difficult, and that brought us closer together. Now, when it did go tits up in that 3rd summer, and my wife said, shall we just go back to Japan? I saw that as taking the easy option. But for those 3 years, which I call my clubhouse years, where I was sorting out the front nine. Those clubhouse years in Spain, which were a fucking struggle from start to finish. From start to fucking finish, Spain were a struggle. But I began to see fucking wins. I was getting wins for the first time in my life. For the first time in my life, I was starting to get wins. They weren't big wins, not by any stretch of the imagination, but there were wins. So we told Spain to go and fuck itself. And we came back to Japan. Now, coming back to Japan, I saw as a failure because I'd not hit the goals I wanted to hit in Spain. Not by a long shot. So we came back to Japan. But what I'd learned to do in Spain, I brought back here to Japan. And that started, it lit a fuse. It lit a fuse. So all the people that I were knocking about with before I went to Spain, they started coming out of the woodwork to hang out with me. But I'd come back this different person. I'd become more positive. I'd stopped boozing. I were all about the work and looking after my family. I wasn't about going out and getting pissed and doing stupid shit. So when people realised that I was doing that instead of the old person, they didn't like it. So the phone stopped ringing. So then I just sort of concentrated on what I needed to get done. There wasn't any goals to it. I just needed to do stuff needed to get done. So I just used that. And what I needed to do was find a job where I lived so I could spend more time with my family. I put my family as the priority and work as a second. Now, the bosses who I worked for didn't like that. But they could see where I was coming from. The people who I used to knock about with didn't like that because they wanted the old Darren. They wanted that fucking dancing monkey to hang about with them just so they could look at me and go, oh, well, I'm not as bad as that. And I want that person anymore. So they didn't want to hang about with me. So I became this loner. I wouldn't say a loner. I became this person that people didn't want to knock about with. They did not want to knock about with the positive Darren. They wanted the old fucking train wreck. And what those people don't realise is you see it. When you get your shit together and people don't want to hang about with you because you've got your shit together, they don't realise that you see that. You see that as clear as day. And then you then realise, right, they just want me to fuck my life up. They don't want to see me winning. And those people, I've not spoken to those people for years. And there's been no falling out. There's been no shouting and bawling. It's just that they've sort of faded back into the background. And they have no dealings with me whatsoever. And you see it. But because they think you're that dumb fuck from way back when, they still think you're that dumb fuck now. And you're not. You change. And that is to do with all that struggle that I had before. So you have your front bit, you have a coming to Jesus moment, which because I'm not religious, I will call the clubhouse moment, and then you've got your back nine. And I'm in the middle of this back nine now, which is great. So then that last 4 years that I've had with the shit job, I'm able to deal with that. I would have, if I'd have had to go through that shit in my 30s, I think I'd have probably put that fucker's teeth down back of his throat. And I'm not a violent person. I wouldn't have let it slide. But you can see when people start to fuck with you now, you can see them picking away at you. like my mother used to do with me. But I used to let it get to me when people close to me used to do it. But I don't now. And if you don't let it bother you, you can fuck with them more than they can ever fuck with you. So for 4 years, I didn't let it bother me. And it fucked them up. It fucked those people up. So when you are at my age, or maybe a bit younger or a bit older, and you see people who are the same age as you doing better than you, stop comparing yourself. Since coming back from Spain, I don't compare myself to anybody. Because you want to take a spin of that wheel? There are 8 billion people drawing breath on this planet. 8 billion people drawing breath on this planet. Do you want to spin that wheel? And it can stop on any one of those 8 billion people. And you have to swap with them. Look at your life now. It might be a right load of shite. But do you want to take that lottery of spinning the wheel and ending up being a garbage collector in India, or an orphaned kid in South America who's picking through a rubbish pile in Peru for plastic? Do you want to be one of them? You see, and then again you can spin it again and be a kid of a billionaire. That never works out well. I think if that big wheel were put in front of me, I would fucking run away from it. I wouldn't even want it to get caught in wind and just click over one. Fuck that. No way. I'm happy right where I am, right what I'm doing. And I know how to deal with struggle now. And I think for them of you who are struggling now, and them of you who are in that clubhouse moment, it gets better. And it might go tits up. It might go tits up later on in life. But I think, fucking hope, I've gone through enough to be able to deal with what's coming. God, do I sound like this? Do I sound like some fucking hippie twat? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Anyway, it's out there now. It's out there now. For them of you who are listening to me, it's uploaded and it's done. Yeah. So all those people that were fucking with you when they shouldn't have been, you've got to thank them. For all those people who are fucking with you now, they're going through a lot worse shit than you are, because they think they can fuck with you and they can't. And for them that are going to fuck with me in future, you know, bring it on, you fuckers. I'm ready for you. I'm fucking ready for you. So that's that, and that's that. Thank you very much. Thank you all for listening. Pass it on, like and subscribe, and I'll see you when I see you. Adios, folks. Thank you.